welcome, dear listeners of our episode Eli at Talks, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of learning and development, exploring the latest trends and innovations that are shaping the future of education. I'm your host, Inna, a learning strategist at Eli.io, and today we have a very special guest. A warm welcome to Trent Draper, EdTech strategist at Get More Brain, on a mission to empower L&D through innovation. With over 15 years of experience in the education and EdTech sectors, Trent specializes in integrating technology to create transformative learning experiences. So today we'll be covering a lot of interesting things, such as EdTech trends, AI-enhanced knowledge management, and challenges for implementing AI-related technologies to L&D processes. So, hi Trent, how are you?
Yeah, hello, Ina. Thanks for having me today. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to see you. So before we dive deep into the topics that I mentioned, let's start with a rapid fire question set. So the idea is to ask the same set of questions from each expert, each guest of ours. And by the end of the season, we will summarize the answers. So let us start from the first one. Can you share a memorable failure or setback in your L&D journey, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, actually, I remember back in Australia many years ago when I was working there, we actually decided to go global. So we just moved from an Australian presence out to a multinational presence, all throughout Asia primarily, but even the Americas as well. And then we were trying to deliver the same training that we did in Australia to everyone around the world. And we failed miserably because while we did a little bit of focus on language, we didn't fully understand the differences between Australian English, where I'm originally from, but also the culture of the way that people learn. So we really had to invest in the management teams around the world to make sure that we understood how different people learn, but then also take into the language considerations as well.
Yeah, but I feel like localization issue is something that each of us sooner or later faces. Question two, so what questions must be asked on a job interview for L&D specialists?
So how do you measure the effectiveness of L&D initiatives? I think this is a big one for me. I think metrics is such a big topic, but I think a lot of people focus on the wrong things.
Yeah, fully agree. Okay, we will cover it a little bit later. If you have to give one piece of advice for someone who is just starting their career in L&D, what would it be?
Stay curious and continuously evolve. I think things are changing quicker than I've ever seen in my entire life. And I think it is important to stay on top of things, or at least as much as you can. And that's where the curiosity comes into play.
Yeah, fully support. You're absolutely right. Many professions are affected by the changes, but I feel that L&D especially. So speaking about, it's still January 29th, so still the beginning of the year. I feel that it's important and it's a must to start our podcast with EdTech trends, right? So could you provide your personal overview on the current trends in L&D that are going to significantly shape 2024 for us?
Yeah, look, I think that's really interesting. I write a blog every week about this sort of topic, but I think it's actually a good time to reflect. So I started university in 1999 and I studied in Melbourne, Australia. And I remember at some point when I was studying there, I remember this new invention they had for lectures, and they put it on a CD-ROM. And I put the CD-ROM into my desktop when I got home, and then all of a sudden, I could actually access the lectures on a computer, and it's spinning around all fast, making noises. And then in the early 2000s came SCORE, and of course then came the LMS. But realistically, for the best part of, that's almost 20 years now, there hasn't been a ton of changes, particularly with technology. There was little to no collaboration, very much checkbox learning. Then came the LXP, which was definitely more on the experience, so the learning experience platform. But I mean, I've seen it firsthand when I've had some colleagues where you press play, you go and get a coffee, you come back, all of a sudden you've got the multiple choice question there, you press the answer, keeps playing. And then some people define that as learning. And for me, that's not learning. So now I think the changes are multifaceted. So first off, obviously technology. what's happened in the last 18 months is phenomenal. Generative AI. I don't think, I mean, 2 years ago, none of us were really even talking about it. I mean, there was obviously some people involved in it, but for the most part, no one was really talking about it. The ability to, instead of like going into Google and typing something in and trying to find an article, nothing wrong with that by any means, where you can now type it into something like ChatGPT, and there's many other options now, and it collects answers from the internet and puts it all into one. Now, the impact on learning is immense, and I think what you can do with AI is changing by the week. Naturally, that's going to be a trend that's going to continue to evolve. What happened over the last 12 months, I've actually got a feeling it's going to be even faster over the next 12 months. And I think, the company I work for, Get More Brain, we're fully focused on that because we need to adapt and evolve with that, because that's really important. I've got two more. The hybrid remote movement. It was a trend. It is a trend. And I think in learning, I mean, I got impacted. Most people got impacted. For 15 years, I was going to the office Monday to Friday, every single day. I never even thought about working from home. It wasn't even a concept. And then one day it's like, you can't come to the office. And it was fine for me because I knew my job. But then all of a sudden you started hiring people, and it's like, these people aren't in front of you. They're not people that you can just go like, hey, you should do that, you should do that. Let's have a meeting, let's have a coffee. Of course you can do it online, but I think some companies are doing a great job. Others are struggling a little bit with the hybrid remote movement. And then the last one is Gen Z or Gen Z, depending on where you're from. And I think they cop a bit of a hard time, and I don't think it's justified, but they are digital natives. Their expectations on technology are far higher than what it was when I was joining the workforce. I got excited by a CD-ROM. Could you imagine telling a 22-year-old now that you get a CD-ROM? It's changed so much. They want their phones, they want tablets, they want it to be online, they want AI. And I think at this point in time, and this will change over time, but they're still the workers. They're not quite in management yet, and they may not be for some time. So we actually have to step up our learning game if we're really going to make a big difference in the way that we onboard, reskill, upskill, and actually just give them learning and knowledge to be successful and ultimately to keep them engaged.
Yeah, fully agree. Do you think that AI could help us with that? So let's cover this topic a little bit more in details. So in what ways artificial intelligence enhances the learning experience from your point of view?
Yeah, look, I think this has been the biggest game changer for me since I've joined Get More Brain. Going back to sort of, the traditional LMS. LMSs are fantastic. They've got some wonderful courses on there. But I think what's changed now with AI is personalized learning. You have the ability to actually get what's important for you. So I do want to give you sort of a visualization here and some of the work that we do. Imagine you've got like a Lego block, right? And you've got like 10 different Lego blocks. There's so many wonderful courses out there, but I've never really experienced where it's just for me in my job. So with AI, what you can do is you can start taking a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit from there, and put it all into one, let's say, digital notebook, and something that we're focused on at Get More Brain. And then all of a sudden, you've got everything that's important for you and your job. You can collaborate, you can learn together. The personalized learning element is a huge change. And I think that's where AI can have such a massive impact on the entire experience. And then for me, the next big one is knowledge management. Now, knowledge management comes in all shapes and all sizes. So I want to explain what I mean here. It's the corporate brain. So every company has knowledge. They have a culture. They have values. They may even have core values, right? Here's this, here's that. But anything from like setting up a printer to how to be successful in social media, all of this exists. But with AI, you can talk to knowledge. You can talk and it can give you answers. So if you can actually invest some time, invest resources, and yes, human resources, you can create an environment where I do this myself now. I'm very lucky that I work for a tech, an ed tech company where we focus on this. But it's like, hey, how do I deal with this? What should I do with that? Yeah, we're lucky. We get to eat our own dog food. So I think that's something that's really, really exciting with AI. And I think that the ability to actually learn when you need it, I mean, that's a term that I talk about a bit on LinkedIn with my posts and so on, but learning in the flow of work. You you have a question now. You might be on the phone with a customer. You might have a meeting with someone. You might have worked for a company for 3 months and go like, I'm too embarrassed to ask that question any longer because I should know the answer to that. And you can be like, hey, what's that acronym mean? Because I'm not sure. As long as the L&D team, as long as management, as long as everyone's built out the infrastructure around the learning, you can really actually have a robust knowledge management system that can really be a huge advantage to onboard, reskill, upskill staff, or actually help them just do their job when they need it.
Yeah, I fully agree. In this respect, from my background, I can say that it's crazy to imagine that multinational companies, sometimes they have so much knowledge, these huge databases, but how to make knowledge actually accessible. So that's the topic for me as well in 2024. So let's talk a bit about this more. In terms of adopting the new technology, there is always a challenge. So with AI, I feel that this is going to be a challenge like none other. So what is your perspective on that? What challenges, what troubles can we expect with adopting AI?
Yeah, look, I think adoption is such an interesting topic, and I think most humans are somewhat resistant to change. And I think like when I speak to people on a daily basis, it's sort of like, we've got X amount of resources to implement something like this. So there's definitely that sort of resistance. I mean, budget naturally comes into play as well, and there is that upfront expense potentially for a saving towards the end. I can't speak on behalf of all corporate lawyers, but I think there's a few corporate lawyers out there a bit nervous about intellectual property going into the AI world. It is getting better and better. Every week there's something new coming out where you can actually invest in your own special space that doesn't get out. But I think there's a little bit of a concern there by some departments. But overall, I think there's also this resistance, and it comes in two fronts, that like AI can do everything. And sometimes it's even on the other side. It's sort of like, oh, great, just set everything up, press the AI button and everything's going to work. It's sometimes the adoption can actually be on the complete opposite side of the scale, where it's like, no, you still need to invest significant resources to make this work. It just won't happen by itself. So look, I think high level, there's some of the major ones.
Yeah. You mentioned AI enhanced knowledge management. So can we stop a little bit and discuss this topic a bit more in detail? So, and also this great topic of, I need to set up printer now. How do I get this knowledge now? And the way that it's easy for me to access. So how do you see the AI leverage that can enhance knowledge management?
Yeah, look, I mean, if I go back to what knowledge management is, it's the corporate brain. So a company like Get More Brain, we provide an ecosystem where you can create everything about the company. You can have all of your learning paths. You can have all the information about the sales team, the marketing team, the finance team, your mission. But then you can have payroll, how to set up a printer. You can have all of that. Now that takes time. In most companies, it lays around somewhere. Maybe it's on a SharePoint or a OneDrive or something like that. And we've all used something like that. But when you need to find a document, and then you type in printer, and then you need to scroll down and find it. There are ways, and I'll just give you an example with Get More Brain. So what you can do is you can put everything up in one place, or you can break it out into different segments. And then all of a sudden, with that example, it's like, hey, I need to set up a printer. This is the printer I need to hook up to. What do I do? It'll give you the answer. Plus, it'll also point you in the direction to the actual training where that information sits, so you can actually go find it. I think this is where knowledge management is so powerful. You can also pull out content from your LMS and actually talk to it. So like you can do the learning there, depending on the courses, upload, PowerPoints, PDFs, everything. I think it's incredible. And I think one of the biggest use cases of knowledge management, and if I break this down, and I mentioned this right at the start, so that's great, right? Where are your core values? Everybody knows where the core values are, right? They probably have them in their emails and all of that. That's fine. But let's say I'm working in the marketing team, but not just in the marketing team, but I'm also working in the social media part of the marketing team. I go to the LMS and I see the CEO doing their message. That's fantastic. it's relevant to me, but it doesn't actually help me do my job in social media. And then I see another training about the product. I see another training about our customers. I see some other trainings that are really good that indirectly help me. It might be like professional development courses, conflict resolution trainings. All of those things are fantastic, but it doesn't help me do my job. So now that I'm in social media and the marketing team, I'm like, what do I actually do? So what I can actually do is take that little bit from here, there, put it all together in one place. And then I can also bring in third-party resources. So I could bring in a YouTube video, I could bring in text, I can bring in an article, and all of a sudden I'm building something robust for me. Then what's incredible from a company perspective is that helps me do my job. But if I ever leave, yes, I leave, I walk out the door. Yes, my email gets shut down. Yes, my SharePoint gets shut down. But the knowledge management system remains. And then when the next person comes in, yes, you've got to work on confidentiality and all those things and ethics, which are very important. But the knowledge management system actually can give you a really good onboarding for that new employee, which doesn't exist in an LMS. That doesn't exist. You might get those odd emails. We've all probably got a new job and you get 10 emails and then you're like, oh, great. But then you've actually got a really robust system to learn. And that's when it goes back to the knowledge management. And what's so incredible is you can actually go like, hey, I've got this marketing campaign coming up. I want to learn more about, should I use Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever else is out there these days, and get those answers just in time. All of this comes through AI. It's great for the company because you retain that knowledge, which is so critical to be successful. And you're actually helping your staff do their job better, be more efficient, and the future employees that come in. I think it's going to be, going back to the trends, and I did mention it, but this is going to be one of the biggest trends in 2024, and it is going to help companies a lot.
Yeah, all the points fully agree, especially about adjusting the learning content because the things they change so fast right now. And especially in the retention part, I feel that it's very important. You mentioned all these fantastic platforms like YouTube, Udemy, Coursera. Why should I use the company provided materials if I can get faster, better, and for free somewhere else? So we just have to adapt, even though it's going to be challenging, but the result will be worth it, I'm sure. A little bit more about AI and practical usage. We talked 2024, I'm sure just as 2022 and 2023 will be about diversity and inclusion as well. So how can technology be leveraged to ensure that learning materials are accessible and diverse for broad audiences?
Yeah, look, I mean, that comes in a few different answers. I mean, I think first off, I mean, depending on the company and your workforce and what they do, but I mean, something as simple as being available on phone, tablet, laptop, desktop, no matter where they are, whether they're working from home, whether they're out in the field, whether they're sitting in the office, it doesn't really matter. And I think that's one simple thing that can be done. It can't be done by all systems at this point in time, and I think that's something that we've seen over the last couple of years, that trying to get a jump start on that is important. But also, I think what's changed a lot now is that a lot of learning came in the video with the quiz. And now, of course, people like to read. I'm more referring to the corporate learning here, but there's so many different options now. Video, of course, is a very powerful tool, but you've also got text, pictures, quizzes, AI feedback. You've got all of these things where some people like to listen to a podcast, and you can incorporate all of this in because some people have a different preference. Some people must listen because they could have a disability, for example, and they can't see and so on. So I think these are things that can be taken into consideration. And look, I live in Switzerland. I'm calling from Switzerland. There's 4 official languages here, and I'm not good in any of them. So that makes it 5 pretty much, where it's English as well. And we see now the translation options that they were pretty primitive, I'd say 5 years ago, but they're pretty incredible now. And with a click of a button, you can transform videos, you can transform audios, you can transform text. I mean, that is incredible. I work with a diverse workforce. We've got people located in different countries around the world, and it's amazing. You just press a button now, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's never 100% perfect, but geez, it's getting a lot better right now, and I think that's something that's really good. And from a learner's perspective, I mean, if you work for a multinational workplace, I mean, look, I'm a native English speaker, but sometimes I'm like, geez, we really push English really hard, and sometimes it's like, that's not the most inclusive way to be. And making it easier for other people is really important.
Yeah, I feel it myself personally. English is my second language, so this year has been quite life-changing. You mentioned video based learning, and let's stop here and dive into this topic a little bit more. So we are at Eli at Talks podcast. How do you perceive the role of such platforms, which are AI-generated videos, in the landscape of educational technology? So what potential can platforms like Eli.io have in shaping the future of L&D?
I think it's absolutely phenomenal. And it was funny, about a month ago, I had a meeting and I'll give you a really good use case on why this is amazing. So they had over 2,000 courses on their LMS, and this is something they've collected over many years. But they had a bit of an upheaval with their management team. They lost the CEO and quite a few senior managers that went to a competitor. And they were now doing an audit, and all but 10 videos they felt that they had to get rid of because they didn't want to have the competitor CEO doing videos on their courses in the LMS. Now, because of the system they were using, it made it very complicated, because basically it meant they had to throw everything out, because it just meant that you just had to start again and pretty much do everything. Video is, most people, I would say, most popular platform, but as soon as it's completed, it's outdated. So what do companies do? You don't talk about the most important things. You don't talk about 2024, because you don't want to say 2024 because it gets outdated by the time the end of the year comes around. Let's say you want to talk about pricing, $24.95, whatever. All of a sudden the prices go up. That video is useless. Companies like Eli, I think it's incredible, where you can actually go and create a video, and I've used these services, and it's like you just type and just change the script, and all of a sudden you've got a new video. That can save hours and hours, and I mean, this could be thousands of hours over a big course. And I think from a learning perspective, you can actually be more confident in giving more relevant information, and the turnaround time isn't as quick. So going back to my marketing example, you're more likely to actually create something that's useful for more people rather than this generic training, which is less useful for anyone.
Yeah, fully support. I know that there is a lot of concerns and questions on how to organize it the most natural way, the most progressive way to reduce cognitive load, etc., etc. But I see that there are more advantages and so much potential. And well, perfectly honest, I wouldn't think 2 years ago that we will be here today discussing AI generated videos. So who knows what the next couple of months even hold, right?
I mean, you're right. It's incredible. I mean, the way it's changed as well. And I think when they first, when you were first dealing with it, I mean, it was very obvious that it was AI. And now it's like, oh, hang on, this is actually pretty incredible. And we have similar services where we convert PowerPoints, for example, into Learning Path. I mean, it really is incredible now on how much time one can save and create really relevant content.
Yeah. Yes, it's super, so extremely interesting times we are living at. Talking about learning experience platforms. So as digital learning experience, the platforms, they continue evolving. What key elements do you believe contribute to a successful growth strategies for these platforms? And how can organizations themselves ensure that they stay ahead in providing innovative and effective learning solutions?
Well, I mean, the first part, I think, is the human element. AI is not going to replace all humans, and I think there is that chatter out there. You only have to go onto LinkedIn and you see that. But ultimately, I think realistically, we need to understand what people want, what people don't want. So what's important when you're creating a course? What's important when you're creating a learning path? What's important when you want a knowledge management system? What are the sort of answers that you need? Like, AI is incredible. And I think when I first started to get more brain, I didn't understand like how much you can do on the back end. You can train it, it can evolve, it can learn. And I think that's something that's really, really exciting. And look, the infrastructure is going to change. I think you have to adapt. And look, I speak to people every day, and there's a variety of different conversations to like, we need this today. Our current system isn't working. There are a lot of companies out there that ultimately they just have to invest realistically millions and millions and millions of dollars to actually get their technology up to a point where it's actually usable with what I mentioned earlier, whether it's with Gen Z or a global workforce and all of these things. And they may or may not be in the position to do that. Because ultimately, AI today is the worst it's ever going to be. From here on out, it's only going to get more powerful. It's only going to get better. So you can either evolve with it or you can stick your head in the sand. But even if you
Yeah.
do stick the head in the sand, it's still going to be there and it's going to continue to evolve. So I think like this is something that's really important for all of us.
Yeah, fully support. I do have a lot of conversations with my colleagues who express the same kind of concerns, and there is part of the people who say, oh, it's just a fad, it's going to leave very soon, so I don't need to adopt. I feel that it's kind of denying the reality. And there is another part which is genuinely scared that, okay, it's going to take our jobs. I feel that it's a very pessimistic way of looking at the things. And just like with any technology, we need to start developing, adopting strategies of the new technologies, because you're absolutely right. It's going to stay here for a long time. Okay, so one more question to ask. We talk about concerns a lot. So let's cover very briefly ethical considerations in terms of using AI. So what's important to keep in mind while you're implementing AI in your L&D strategy?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's the ethical, legal considerations, particularly from a company perspective. It's what do you want to do with the user's information? So every country is different, so it's hard to give a one-size-fits-all answer. The European Union has just given legislation that's going through. So I'm just going to talk super high level here. But I mean, people want to be able to ask questions that they're too afraid to ask. And I think that's what's so amazing in AI. And the last thing you want to do is have your boss go like, what did that acronym mean after 3 months of working there that you should know? So that's sort of a lighthearted answer on that piece, but I think that's a real concern, because if you really want to learn and you really want to have technology that makes a difference, you've got to allow people to fully go in there and actually have the consideration that you've got some sort of anonymity like behind there. Then privacy of all data, obviously there's actually a legal requirement of that I think becomes really important. You know, there are some communication platforms out there that can fully report back into the managers and say exactly what they're typing on their keyboard and so on. So I think all of these considerations are important. And then I think the other one, and I think AI has come so far in such a short amount of time, and it's the bias, unconscious bias, conscious bias. And in defense of AI, I don't remember the exact number, but maybe about 12 months ago, it had read 8%, 10% of the internet. And it was only regurgitating what it had read. So whatever the biases were on that 10%, it was just basically saying the same. And I've seen that it's changed a lot since then, where the biases of, and whether it's, you know, race or gender or whatever it might be, they've done a really good job of training the AI to eliminate that. I've done some tests personally just to see like what other biases and like perceptions of countries and so on, just to sort of see how it's gone. And I've been really impressed with what it's done. And I think you see that now, and anyone who's got the paid version of ChatGPT, I encourage you to like create a picture and actually test that out. And it's amazing what it does now. And I've actually been very impressed with how much they've been training it in the background. Now, there's so many different AIs out there, but I think that's a really big one from an ethical consideration on something to focus.
Okay, so thanks, Trent, for sharing insights and shedding light on how the learning experience, learning landscape is being transformed. And there you have it, dear listeners. I hope you've been as inspired as I have. We are open to connecting on LinkedIn. The links are going to be in the chat, as well as the links for the sales department if you're interested in this. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave your thoughts in the comments, and share. And of course, stay tuned for more conversations on the future of education. This is Inna signing off from Eli at Talks. Until the next time.
Thanks very much, Aina. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.